In this class, we have been studying the Upanishads, Vedanta texts, primarily the Upanishads. And in our journey, we have started out at the mountaintop with the Mandukya Upanishad and the Mandukya Karika, which we did at the very beginning. And then we're taking the scenic route now, slowly again covering the whole journey. We have studied the Katha Upanishad, then we followed it up with the Mundaka Upanishad. And now we're going to start another Upanishad in the same series, which is the Kena Upanishad. The Upanishads, of course, are the foundational texts of Vedanta. Vedanta Nama Upanishad Pramanam. Vedanta is the source. The source of spiritual knowledge called the Upanishads is Vedanta. And everything else flows from these Upanishads. So when we are studying the Upanishads, we are right at home. This is the home tradition, the root texts of Vedanta. That's what we are doing. And these are also very ancient texts. Now, the Kena Upanishad is a short Upanishad. It's not as short as the Mandukya Upanishad, which has only 12 mantras. It's a little more, but still a very short Upanishad. A very powerful, wonderful, wonderful Upanishad. In fact, I keep it sort of halfway in the journey because first we need a little grounding. The Katha Upanishad and the Mundaka Upanishad, they provide a softer introduction with stories and a lot of padding, like shock absorbers. Kena Upanishad gets straight to the point, a bit like the Mandukya Upanishad. I sometimes say, from my personal rating, from me personally, it's my second favorite Upanishad. My favorite Upanishad being the Mandukya Upanishad, along with the Mandukya Karika of Gaudapada. And in my ranking, personal ranking, my second would be the Kena Upanishad. Also, a little personal secret, it's the only Upanishad which I've truly memorized. And the reason being, we're supposed to memorize that. People think I've got all of these Upanishads memorized, but I don't. I only have parts of them memorized. The parts I like or parts which we were made to memorize by our teachers. This one, the whole thing I've got memorized because the teacher I first learned it from, which is who's Swami Atmapriyanandaji. We were novices at that time. This was more than 25 years ago, even longer, even earlier. And what he did was, he wouldn't teach it to us at first. At first, every class was chanting the Upanishad. He didn't say outright memorize it. He said, just chant with me. So we chanted again and again and again till it became, it was memorized. And it has a nice feel to it when you chant it. It's good for chanting. It has a nice rhythm to it. So so that's another thing. It's the one I have on instant recall, Kena Upanishad. Kena, yes. Somebody asking how do you spell it? Kena. Kena. The Sanskrit Kena, which means by what? By what? Or by whom? Or by what? All right. With that background, let us jump into the Upanishad. What I'll do today is that every Upanishad starts with a peace invocation. We'll start with the peace invocation of this Upanishad. Then today, instead of starting with the first mantra of the Upanishad, what I'll do is I'll summarize Shankaracharya's introductory commentary. We all know that these Upanishads which we are studying, they have been explained by Shankaracharya, writing about 1200 to 1300 years ago. He wrote extensive commentaries called Bhashya on at least 11 of the Upanishads, at least 10, arguably 11th one, the Shvetashvatara, which is a little controversial. 10 Upanishads definitely, and on the Brahma Sutras and on the Bhagavad Gita. These bhashyas, commentaries of Shankaracharya, form the basis of by our, I mean Advaitic understanding of the Upanishads, the non-dual understanding of the Upanishads. So Shankaracharya has written uniquely for this Upanishad, Kena Upanishad, he has written 2 full commentaries. So there is what is called the Pada Bhashyam and Vakya Bhashyam. Padavashyam means a commentary, word by word explanation of the Upanishad, which is what we will study, which is definitely the work of Adi Shankaracharya. There's also another commentary, which I admit I have not studied and I will not be teaching. That is called the Vakya Bhashya. Tradition identifies it with Adi Shankaracharya. Um, the, the story goes he was not fully satisfied with the first commentary, and he wrote one more to complement his first commentary. But scholars will say that it was written by somebody else later on. And when we studied it as students, the Kena Upanishad, we studied it with the first commentary of Shankaracharya, the Padabhashyam. So what I will teach will always be based on the Padabhashyam, not the Vakya Bhashyam. Some books have both. Oh, by the way, books. So any book which has the text is good enough. If you have the text and a working translation, good translation is good enough. The one which I use, if you want translations, is Gambhiranji's classic, 2 volumes, 8 Upanishads. This is in volume 1. The very second Upanishad is the Kena Upanishad. So this is the Kena Upanishad in Shankaracharya's commentary is translated into English, and the original Upanishad mantras are also there with a very good, very precise English translation. So I use this, but you can use anything else also. I mean, just the original text is available freely everywhere on the internet. Also, you can get it. What else do I need to say? Let's start with it. Today's agenda is an introduction to the Upanishad, the peace invocation, and the bulk of the class will be a summary of Shankaracharya's introduction to the Upanishad in his Bhashyam, Padabhashyam, his introductory commentary on the Upanishad. Now let me start with the peace chant. Om आप्यायन्तु ममङ्गानि वाक्प्राणश्चक्षुश्रोत्रं मथो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्मोपनिषदं माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्यां मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत् अनिराकरणमस्त्वनिराकरणं मेस्तु तदात्मनि निरते य उपनिषत्सु धर्मास्ते मयि सन्तु ते मयि सन्तु Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So every class we will start with this chant. What does it mean? May my limbs, speech, vital force, eyes, ears, as also strength and all the organs become well developed. Everything is the Brahman revealed in the Upanishads. May I not deny Brahman, may not Brahman deny me. Let there be no spurning of me by Brahman, let there be no rejection of Brahman by me. May all the virtues that are spoken of in the Upanishads repose in me, who am engaged in the pursuit of the self. May they repose in me. Om, peace, peace, peace. So, what does this mean? Here, it is a prayer. It's a peace chant, of course, but it's a prayer for 4 things. First, it's a prayer for the power of the health and well-being and power in the physical body and the subtle body. Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira. Why? Because we need these for self-realization, for spiritual realization. Often people say that when you become spiritual, you give up all worldly concerns and you become very unworldly. No, no, no. Let's be very practical about it. Just as a person who is trying to get a degree, works hard for the degree and takes care of his or her health and well-being, just as a person who's trying to earn money and have a career, takes care of their own health and personal well-being and relationships, all of those things are done because you have a clear goal in view. Similarly, here we have a clear goal in view, and we need time, energy, peace of mind, strength of body, fitness of our senses. All of those things are needed. You can't have a sick body, an unhappy mind, senses which are not functioning properly, environment which is polluted or disturbed, um, people and things around you disturbing you constantly, taking you away from your spiritual pursuit. No, no, you can't have that. You have to be quite determined about it. So here is the prayer. He's praying to God that please bless me with a strong body. and with a determined mind and sharp senses, so that I can study, I can think, I can understand, I can assimilate. Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. I can hear, systematically study the Vedanta, listen to the teachings. I can understand the arguments so that I get clarity about it. And I can sit with this clarity in deep, prolonged meditation, prolonged meditation, until the thing is done, until it becomes a natural, it becomes a living reality for me. At which point, all of this will not be necessary. You see, the Vedas are probably the only scriptures which deny their own ultimate utility. They say you have to reach that point, yatra Veda aveda bhavanti. You have to reach that point where the Vedas are no Vedas. You don't need it anymore. Where you have realized it, the truth is so clear to you, you don't need a book to tell you, you don't need a spiritual teacher to tell you anything about it. You know, you are seeing it all the time, you are dwelling in it, you are living it. So we will have to reach that. And until that time, let things go well for me. I pray that may I be healthy, may I be strong, may my environment be conducive. So if you see, there's a prayer for physical well-being, well-being of the senses, the limbs and the speech and whatever you need to study, and for mental well-being. Then the essence of the teaching is given. Sarvam Brahma Upanishadam. This is the essence of Vedanta. Everything, and by that I mean everything without exception, is the Brahman revealed in the Upanishads. So everything that we experience in this world, in our waking world, this physical world, everything in our dream world, in our mental world, our thoughts, feelings, ideas, emotions, everything beyond that in the causal world, all of that is Brahman. And you are that Brahman. This existence, consciousness, bliss is the ultimate reality. Sarvam Brahma Upanishad. It is not limited by, by religion. It's not limited by race or gender. It's not limited by time or place. It's not limited. It's not even a question of whether you're a human or not, or an animal or a plant, or even whether a living being or non-living being. Everything without exception is this Brahman. And yet nothing seems to be this Brahman. We don't see it. The whole point of Vedanta is to get us to see this oneness of all existence. Vivekananda put it very powerfully. All that Vedanta teaches you is the oneness of all existence and the divinity within us. The oneness of all existence and the divinity within us. Sarvam Brahma Upanishadam. Then he says something interesting. The prayer is Maham Brahma Nirakuryam. May I not deny Brahman, and then Ma Brahma Nirakarod. May Brahman not deny me. And then he repeats it. Let there be no spurning of me by Brahman. Let there be no rejection of Brahman by me. What does it mean? May I not lose faith, first of all, and the beginning of our spiritual journey. May I not lose faith that there is this ultimate reality. The only reason why we are sticking to where we are making this inquiry, why we take it seriously, is that we actually take it, that we say that we feel it's true. And some people ask, why did you become a monk? Well, one reason is when I used to read these books by Vivekananda as a kid, it seemed to promise something amazing, something extraordinary, what Americans would call mind-blowing, that God exists, God can be experienced, and the purpose of life is to experience God, and that I too can, and not only can, I should try to realize God. So this faith, without this, one will not enter into a serious spiritual quest. One may be interested in reading and listening, but that will not be your life's purpose. Goal of my life is God realization. It stands on the faith that that such a thing is real and it's possible and it's worthwhile. So may I not deny the Brahman of the Upanishads. That's one prayer. It's a prayer. It's a great, great gift which comes from the other side. It's a gift from God that we have this taste, this interest in non-duality. The Avadhuta Gita starts with this. Ishvara anugrahadeva pumsam advaita vasana. It's a special gift, a special grace of God that one has a liking, a desire, an inclination towards non-duality. Ishvara anugrahadeva, only by the special grace of God. And in the rest of the Avadhuta Gita, he gives God the short shrift. But it starts with God. That by the grace of God, you are interested in this. Be thankful. And let me never lose my faith, my interest in this. This is the first prayer. And then the other way around. May Brahman not reject me. This is a great, great prayer. We realize as we go forward in spiritual life the importance of grace. That we have devotion for God, faith in God, that's grace. That we have an interest in meditation, the ability to meditate, to trying to meditate, that's grace. That we want to improve ourselves ethically, that's grace. That we believe that there is a higher purpose or reality in life in which we can realize, that's grace. And that we are pulled towards non-duality, above all towards Vedanta, that's tremendous grace. So let that grace flow to me. Let God not turn away his face from us. When has God turned away his face from us? When we become immersed in worldliness, in pleasure or in pain, in great suffering or in great worldly enjoyment, God has turned his face away. We are living in the shadow of God. So this, may God not deny me. Here Brahman means Saguna Brahman, the God of religion to whom we are praying for all this. And then he repeats it. Now, one way you might say it's to strengthen the prayer. It's a repetition is a sign of emphasis. But I offer you a more advanced interpretation, a deeper interpretation. The second cycle of when he says, "May I not deny Brahman, and may Brahman not deny me," is may I not deny Brahman is when you are a Vedanta student, when you are advanced in Vedantic study, as we have been doing for years, we are pursuing Vedanta. Certain amount of clarity has come. Now comes this great, subtle but great step of owning up to it. If you really believe all this stuff, if you think it's true, own up to it. Say to yourself again and again, I am Brahman, not I'm seeking Brahman. I am already free. The world is an appearance, it appears in me, the limitless consciousness. If you don't know what limitless consciousness is, you have to go back to the earlier Upanishad. We have talked about it endlessly, and we'll again talk about it in this one. So, may I not deny what I have studied and understood, and I claim to have understood it. I claim to believe in this. I claim that it's clear to me. In that case, claim it. Don't say it at least, or internally at least say it. I am Brahman. Let this be our inner conviction. May I not deny it. May I not push it away. There are people who are entirely too modest. No. Yes, I have understood that I am limitless consciousness. But my neighbor bothers me so much, or I have this bad boss at work. Just a minute. Look what you did just now. You shifted the meaning of the word I. First you said, I am limitless consciousness. Did you mean it? Yes, I meant it. Next you say, I have a bad boss at work. But that I is not limitless consciousness. It's this guy who works in the office, and there's another guy who is, or somebody else who is my boss. And I don't like my boss. There I'm no longer I. The term I does not refer to limitless consciousness. If it is limitless consciousness, then my boss cannot be an other to me. I and my boss must be the same reality, same awareness itself. With this cloak of body and mind, it's me. With that cloak of that body and mind, it's the boss. But I am the same reality. Why should I complain? I'll try to make the best of it. I'll try to do as well as I can. But it should not be an issue for me. See, if I seriously do not deny Brahman, 90% of our problems are immediately solved, even long before it becomes a living spiritual realization. If I just claim that I am Brahman, and let me try to look at every problem from that perspective, so-called problem. Life will throw up continuous problems. Life gives us plenty of opportunities for practice. So life gives us plenty of opportunities for Vedanta practice. I remember this monk who complained about the conditions in the ashram and how the other monks were behaving with him. He complained to a senior monk, and the senior monk heard him out and finally said to this young monk, tell me, all of these problems and suffering, is it harming your chitta shuddhi, purification of your mind? And this monk said, no, that it isn't. It is helping me in my spiritual growth. Yeah, it's a problem, for my peace of mind or my health or whatever it is. But from my perspective of spiritual growth, it is not a problem. Similarly, from the perspective of me being Brahman, these things are not a problem. If I genuinely claim that I am Brahman, if I do not deny it, what we do is we say, I understand it. The moment I say I understand it, I mean I am Brahman. And then we deny it next moment by the way we think and speak and behave. So may I not deny Brahman. This is the repetition of that is the advanced practice of Vedanta. Not only just faith in all these teachings, but now actually owning up. Yes, I will not deny it. I am Brahman. And the other one, Anirakarnamastu. May Brahman not deny me liberation. Brahman is not denying me the faith. That's the first claim. May the grace of God be always with me. The second one would be a more advanced prayer that may Brahman not deny me liberation in this very life, Jivan Mukti, the life of the liberated one. This is a sort of, we are pushing the boundaries because the commentary does not support it. The traditional commentaries will say the repetition is for emphasis. But we are saying here is a deeper interpretation. And then the next prayer, next prayer is for those who are deeply engaged, sincerely engaged in the quest for God realization. May all the qualities that the Upanishads mention, which are necessary for God realization, may they come to our lives. Basically, it's a prayer for, oh Lord, transform me into a saint. All the spiritual qualities, the ethical qualities, the self-control, the compassion, fearlessness. This is not easy. By the grace of God, let them flower, blossom in my life. May my life become blessed by these qualities. Ethical and spiritual disciplines, may they come in my life. Again, interpretation at two levels. One is the preparatory qualifications. We all know what they are. The fourfold qualifications, the discernment between the eternal and the non-eternal, the dispassion, vairagya, the dispassion for the non-eternal, the 6 disciplines, shama, calmness of mind, dhamma, a control over our body, of the senses, then titiksha, spiritual toughness, fortitude, that come what may, I shall continue my spiritual journey. And then there is this uparati, a pulling back from too much engagement with the world. And then samadhana, settling down, focus on your spiritual path. And then shraddha, a faith that all this is true. We have to realize it. Until then, it goes on faith. And then the last qualification, these are 6 disciplines. And the last qualification is mumukshutvam, an intense desire for freedom. Let these qualities manifest in my life. Because without these qualities, enlightenment will not be possible. These teachings will not take root. This is one side of the prayer. The other side of the prayer is that let the qualities of the Jivan Mukta, the enlightened by living, let me be able to live this life. And the advanced student prays, I have understood it. Now let me live the life. Let me manifest this understanding, this divinity within which I feel it. I understand it. I feel it. By the grace of God, may I be able to live it. You can see that's a more advanced prayer that comes later. All right. So this is the peace chant which begins the Upanishad. I will not, of course, explain all the peace chant every time. We'll just chant it and read the translation and go ahead. All right. Now, the Kena Upanishad, the Upanishad itself, you know that these Upanishads belong to different Vedas. They're scattered across different Vedas. For example, the Mandukya Upanishad, which we did first, belongs to the Atharvana Veda or Atharva Veda. The Katha Upanishad belongs to the Yajur Veda. It's found in the Yajur Veda. Then we did the Mundaka Upanishad, which also belongs to the Atharva Veda. And now we are in the Kena Upanishad. Kena Upanishad belongs to the Sama Veda. Of the four Vedas, Rig, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva, the Sama Veda, the Kena Upanishad belongs to the Sama Veda. It's a Sama Veda Upanishad. The Vedas are divided into different sections. So there is one section in the Sama Veda called the Talavakara Brahmana. Talavakara Brahmana. And this Upanishad forms the 9th chapter of that Talavakara Brahmana. I'll repeat that. The Kena Upanishad is found in the Sama Veda in a section called the Talavakara Brahmana, which is why sometimes technically Pandits might call it the Talavakara Upanishad. The Talavakara is the name of a rishi. So it's called the Talavakara Upanishad because it's found in the Talavakara Brahmana. And in that section, the 9th chapter is the Kena Upanishad. Shankaracharya gives an extensive and profound introduction to the Upanishad. We are not going to read through the introduction. What I'm going to do is, I'll give you a sort of pre-digested version. I looked at the introduction and broadly divided it into 10 points, which I will just put out before you. I'll just go through each of those 10 points. Remember, the 10 points, they're not points in the introduction itself. These are artificial sections I have made just for ease of comprehension. What does Shankaracharya say before he starts the actual Upanishad? By the way, this Upanishad is scintillating. I mean, it starts with questions, and every mantra of it is extraordinary. It starts with the big question we are all interested in. Jumping ahead, we'll see this again later in the next class. But the question of consciousness, what is consciousness? And the hard problem of consciousness. It starts with that. Imagine 5,000 years ago. And that's why I always quote Evan Thompson in his book, Waking, Dreaming, Being. He said consciousness studies is not a new subject. The rishis of the Upanishads 5,000 years ago on the plains, the Indo-Gangetic plains in India, they talked about consciousness studies. They made the first significant philosophical investigations into consciousness studies. So he starts with that question, and remarkable language, um, uh, it is the eye of the eye, ear of the ear, the mind of the mind. We do not know how to teach it. It is other than the known, other than the unknown. It is not something that you can think about with the mind, but because of it, the mind is able to see. And when, if you think you know it, you don't know it. If you think you do not know it, you know it. Things like that. All of them, they are all here. If you realize Brahman, what is enlightenment? Full enlightenment. The one who realizes Brahman in every experience of life, effortlessly in every experience of life, limitless consciousness shines forth. It's just all light shining. It becomes effortlessly evident to you. That one is fully enlightened. This is all that we find in this Upanishad. So it will all come. Now, Shankaracharya's commentary. I just keep looking at the original Sanskrit and give an approximate English summary. So Shankaracharya says, Kene Shetam Ityadi Upanishad. Don't mind the Sanskrit, it's more for my benefit, and some of you may want to listen to the language, the rhythm of the original language. Whatever is read out, I will summarize in English. Parabrahma Vishaya Vaktavya iti navamasya adhyayasya arambhaha. So Shankaracharya says, the first sentence of his commentary is that this is the 9th chapter. Now I've given you the background. 9th chapter of what? This is sort of taken for granted. You understand what we are talking about. Kena Upanishad belongs to the Sama Veda. In the Sama Veda, you have the Talavakara Brahmana. In that, Shankaracharya begins at that point. We are talking about the 9th chapter now. Let's take up 9th chapter, and it is about Parabrahma, the Supreme Brahman. Immediately the question arises in our minds, okay, so we are diving straight into the 9th chapter of a book. What went on in the 8 earlier chapters? And Shankaracharya knows we want to know that. And so he tells us in the next, it's a long sentence, but in one sentence he tells us what went on in the 8 chapters preceding the Upanishad. And 9th chapter Upanishad, what happened in those 8 chapters? There were 4 things there. He says, karma, many Vedic rituals were talked about in those 8 chapters. Second, upasana. What kind of upasana? Hiranyagarbha upasana. Upasana means worship. And this means not the kind of pujas modern Hindus are used to. This is the worship in Vedic worship. So not only the Vedic rituals, which were the fire rituals, they were mentioned, and the upasanas, which were meditative processes taught by the Vedas. So upasana of Hiranyagarbha. Hiranyagarbha means the cosmic mind, but not just mind, the cosmic subtle body. So we have a physical body, and then within we have a subtle body, and the subtle body has multiple components. There is the pranic component, the life forces. Then there is the mind and the intellect, and then there is the ego, there is the memory, there are the powers of the senses. All of that, that bundle, which is one way of understanding subtle body, is our inner first person experience. We are feeling thoughts, feelings, ideas, memories, desires, all of that. Those are parts of the subtle body. But imagine all the subtle bodies like a universe-wide network of all minds. So that's the cosmic mind, um, uh, the mind of God, if you will. So meditation on those things were taught. Then the third kind of thing which was talked about in the 8 preceding chapters is karmanga upasana, upasanas which are related to the rituals. So each ritual has a kind of worship, meditation associated with it. You see it in modern pujas also. In modern pujas, what do you see? The priest makes various kinds of offerings, then chants mantras, does various hand gestures, and also sits once in a while and meditates on something, whatever. So that meditation is a upasana. Um, so in the original Vedic uh, rituals, fire rituals, there were upasanas which were part of the rituals. You do the ritual in this way, but once in a while you have to meditate in a particular way on something. What kind of meditation used to be was pointed out. These earlier 8 chapters dealt with that. And one last thing which these earlier 8 chapters dealt with is what is called Vangshantam Uktam. At the very end, there is lineages of teachers and students. So such and such rishi and such student, and then their student. So teacher student lineages. Sometimes they were actual biological lineages, father and son maybe, but sometimes teacher and student. So those lineages are mentioned. This is what all which went on in the first 8 chapters. But now we are coming to an entirely different subject. Now, in the next point, Shankaracharya says, all those rituals and meditations, what's the point of them? Shankaracharya says this is the Vedic view of life. Shankaracharya gives a synoptic view. In one sentence, he gives a synoptic view of the Vedic view of life. Those who do those rituals and meditations without any desire, their only desire is enlightenment. So basically, if you take a step back, he's saying if you lead a religious life, an ethical life, and your goal is enlightenment, then those ritualistic practices and those upasanas, the result will be purification of mind, concentration of mind, and you'll be ready for Vedanta. So the previous 8 chapters, what's their connection with the Upanishad, the 9th chapter? Their connection is, if you want enlightenment, then the practices taught in those 8 chapters, if you do some of them for a while, they will purify your mind and focus your mind and make you ready, give you the qualifications to convert the Vedantic teaching into enlightenment. So he says that. His actual words are Sarvam Yetad Yathoktam Karma cha Jnanam cha Samyak Anushtitam. All of this which was said in the 8 chapters earlier, the rituals and the meditations. Nishkamasya mumukshoho. For the one who's seeking freedom, spiritual freedom, and does not want anything worldly. Sattva shuddhyartham bhavati. It purifies the mind of such a person. But that's not their primary purpose. The rituals in the Vedic rituals, which are called karma kanda, their primary purpose is the fulfillment of desires, this worldly desires and other worldly desires. People who want things in this world, so they engage on in those rituals. You want to conquer an enemy, you want good rainfall for your crops, you want your cattle to multiply, you want children, all of those. So plentiful harvests and progeny and conquest, victory over enemies and stuff like that, which you might have wanted 3,000 years ago on the plains of India. The gods will bless you with all that success in this world and after death. So this is the Vedic worldview. What happens after death? After death, such a person will go to heaven, will go to the heaven which is noble ancestors dwell in. You'll go and stay in those heavens for a while. Nothing is permanent. For a while, you'll have a really good time there, but again, you have come back to the world and be reborn as human beings. So he says here, sakamasyatu, but for those who have desires. So usually those with desires who perform those rituals. Those who have desires, jnana rahitasya kevalani shrautani smartani cha karmani dakshina marga pratipatte punaravrittaye cha bhavanti. Those who do the rituals and they don't do the meditations. That's one option. You do the fire rituals, which are prescribed, you will get the results of that in this life, and after death, you will go to the heavens of the ancestors. But punaravritti, you'll be reborn again. Once your the merit, punya of those rituals is finished, you'll again come back to this world. Those who meditate and do the rituals, who combine upasana and karma, rituals and meditation with desire, they will go to the highest heaven possible, which is called Brahmaloka. But if they still have worldly desires, they will also have to be reborn. So for those who follow the Vedic path, there are these three options. One option is if you want enlightenment, then these rituals and meditations will lead to purification of mind and you'll be ready for Vedanta knowledge, the 9th chapter, the Upanishad. But if you don't want enlightenment, if you don't want that, you just want worldly success, then you want to go to heaven after death, then there are two options. You can do rituals only, which will lead you to the lower heavens. Or you can do rituals plus meditations, which will lead you to the highest heaven, Brahmaloka or Devaloka. All of those, you will come back to this world. There is a fourth option. Suppose you say, somebody doesn't want enlightenment. Somebody is not doing any kind of ritual. Somebody is not doing any kind of meditation, just leading a worldly life, trying to get by in the world and enjoy worldly pleasures, and that's it. What will happen to such a person? Doesn't even particularly believe in heaven. Lots and lots of people like that now. Lots and lots of people. So what will happen to them? Shankaracharya says there's this option. Swabhavikya to ashastriyaya pravrityaya pashvadi sthavaranta adhogati syat. He says those who pursue an instinctive animalistic life, they'll be born as animals, lower animals, even down to plants, he says. And they will live like that for a while, and then past karma will kick in, good results, good merits of past karma, and then finally again get a birth as a human being. So an instinctive life is not a good thing. Neither do we become spiritual, nor is the result good after death. So now you have four options. Spiritual seekers like us, we will be purified by these practices and we'll be made better spiritual seekers, more able to absorb the Vedantic teaching coming in the 9th chapter. Those who lead a Vedic lifestyle with worldly desires and other worldly desires, they will either go to the lower heavens or to the highest heaven, but they'll have to come back. And then the last one, those who don't believe in anything, are not interested, will lead this life, and after death may be born as, if they have led a very bad life, they're born as animals or plants, and then get a chance as a human being again. Now there is a fifth option also. The fifth option is the enlightened one, who, if you study the 9th chapter, Kena Upanishad, if you're lucky enough to become enlightened in this very life itself, you are not reborn anymore. So there's no question of going to higher heavens or lower heavens or being born as human beings, plants, animals, nothing. You realize that you are Brahman and you're free. So this is the third point. That fifth option, the enlightened one, what will happen if we study the ninth chapter, the Kena Upanishad, if we pursue Vedanta, then all the four options mentioned earlier. Fourth one, spiritual seeker. What will happen to the spiritual seeker after enlightenment? That's mentioned now. Vishuddha sattvasya tu nishkamasya. Once you have purified your mind, once you are ready for enlightenment, ready for Upanishadic knowledge, and you don't have desires for this world or for going to heaven after death. Evam, eva, bahyad, anityat, sadhya sadhana sambandhat, iha kritat, purva kritat va, samskara vishesha udbhavat, viraktasya, pratyagatma vishaya, jigyasa pravartate. So now this is the preparation for enlightenment. What happens? Once a certain purification of mind has set in, then an inquiry arises. He's talking about all of us. This is relevant to all of us. Once a certain purification of mind has been achieved, an inquiry arises about ultimate reality. Who am I? What's all this? What's going on here? Is there any ultimate reality, spiritual reality in this world, in life? Is there any deep solution to the problem of life at all? That inquiry arises. The way Shankaracharya puts it is very interesting, very profound. He says, other than the external, the world, its people, all that worldly people are interested in, money, power, relationships, other than all of that, other than the physical and the intellectual and the artistic, all the good, the beautiful, the ugly, other than all of that, anityat, all of those are characterized by one thing, impermanence. Other than all of that external, impermanent, other than the external, other than the impermanent, and then he gives a very profound definition of the word, sadhya sadhana sambandhat, other than that which is in the realm of causality. Sadhya sadhana, sadhya, a goal to be achieved. Sadhana, the means of achieving it. Money is the means of, towards a great life and a nice vacation, a nice house and gadgets and a nice car. So those are the goals, and money is the means. And for the money, I need more means, like a job maybe, to get the money. So other than any goal to be achieved, or whatever goal is to be achieved is something that does not exist now. Whatever goal is to be achieved is impermanent because it did not exist. It will hopefully come into existence, but whatever did not exist and comes into existence generally will also go out of existence after some time. So these external causes and results, causes and effects, goals and methods. He says, samsara is just this, goals and methods, including religious methods and goals, including things which we do in spiritual life. I want a peaceful life, a mind, a deep, quiet, peaceful mind. What is that? Samadhi. That's a goal. And for that, I have a method, meditation. I want a mind which is, truthful and self-controlled and compassionate. I'm trying to design a mind like that. And for that, there are ethical practices which I must do. So even religious goals, spiritual goals, and the methods for that, spiritual practices, and of course, all worldly goals, money, relationships, education, these are all methods and goals, causes and effects. And all other worldly things, which we are not very interested these days, but the Vedic people are very interested, that I can, after death, what will happen to me? Which heaven will I go to? And therefore, I have these methods, these Vedic fire rituals, which will take me to the heaven of my choice. All of these, going to a heaven, in this world, children, power, relationships, money, and spiritual goals also, calm and quiet mind and meditation techniques, all of those he puts under one umbrella. He calls it sadhya, goals, sadhana, methods. I am asking for something beyond these goals and methods, something that's already there. It's not a goal to be achieved, is not a method to be applied. It's the reality beyond samsara. Samsara is goals and methods, objectives and methods we use for objectives. Other than this, now a question might arise. Wait a minute, you're saying all those rituals mentioned in those 8 chapters, if you need to do them for a purification of mind so that you're ready for Vedanta, for the 9th chapter. But just a minute, I didn't even know about those 8 chapters till now. And I am not a Vedika Hindu. I have absolutely no idea how to do a fire sacrifice. I'll probably set off fire alarms everywhere if I try to do a fire sacrifice. And I am not very sure it will really lead to my purification of mind. Um, so is it essential? Shankaracharya says no, no. What is essential are the qualifications of spiritual life. And those qualifications, Shankaracharya says, you may already have it. And the sign of that is, do you have this Vedantic question? In one sense, we all have it. The very fact that some nearly 85 people, 84 people, we are all present here, we all have this interest. That's why we are here. Many of us have been pursuing spiritual life for decades, years and decades. So we have this quest already. But one might say, but I didn't do any fire rituals. I didn't follow those 8 chapters. I've never even seen those 8 chapters. I didn't follow those Vedic rituals and Vedic meditations. Well, Shankaracharya says, he says, Iha kritat purva kritat va. Either you have done it in this life or you might have done it in past lives. It's not necessary that you've done those particular Vedic rituals. Basically, what is required is leading a mature life, gaining some maturity in life, rising above the superficial goals, the superficial pleasures of life, and pursuing some form of spirituality, which we all have. And so he says, how did we get it? He says, you must have experienced all this in your past lives. Basically, a process of maturation, spiritual maturation is what he is recommending. Hopefully, we are mature enough to have a spiritual quest. And he says, you might have attained this maturity in past lives. You may not need to do it in this life. So thank God, we don't have to look into those 8 chapters. We can go straight to the 9th chapter, the Upanishad. That's what we are here for. What happens? Jigyasa pravartate pratyagatma vishaya. It says, an inquiry arises. What kind of inquiry? Pratyagatma vishaya. Who am I? About my real nature. What am I? And about life itself. An inquiry, a serious inquiry arises. This becomes the most serious thing in our lives. And he says, viraktasya. He uses a word. The word virakta means a person who has tremendous dispassion for the world. The world is no longer your primary goal. Not husband, wife, children, grandchildren, not money, property, and not Facebook likes and so on. That is no longer, it may be there in your life. You may be surrounded by it, but it's not the purpose of your life. It's not the goal of your life. Money is not the goal of your life, purpose of your life. Power is not the purpose of your life. Fame is not the purpose of your life. Relationships are not the purpose of your life. The purpose of your life becomes this question: who am I? What am I? An overwhelming spiritual quest comes. It can take different forms. It can take, like Narendranath going around in 19th century Calcutta, late 19th century Calcutta, asking, sir, have you seen God? Can God be seen? It's the same quest. Search for God or search for the truth about oneself, search for about what is all this? What's the point of it all? It could be a search for self-realization or a search for God realization. So the next question is, and for such a person, Shankaracharya says, the 9th chapter is started. This is an introduction to the 9th chapter. For you, if this is your question, where does this question come from? Vishesha samskar udbhavat, he says. Vishesha udbhavat, sanskara vishesha udbhavat. A samskara in the mind, a tendency in the mind arises, suddenly it flowers. There are people who say, I was not interested in all these things, and suddenly it's become a great interest for me, for spiritual life. Or some say, I was interested in it all along. I had a deep spiritual inclination as a child. Where did it come from? None of us did those 8 chapters and fire rituals earlier, and most of us didn't, unless you are a traditional Vedika Hindu. Shankaracharya says past lives. And how do I know I have that maturity? This question arises. Where did it arise? Vishesha samskara, a certain tendency is there in the mind, it manifests. That tendency came from past lives. We are fortunate because we have it. तदेतद् वस्तु प्रश्न प्रतिवचन लक्षणया श्रुत्या प्रदर्श्यते केनेशितम् इत्याद्य अद्यया. So this reality, spiritual reality which we are seeking for, this is now being taught in this 9th chapter, starting with the Keneshitam. The Keno Upanishad starts with the mantra Keneshitam padati preshitam mana kena prana pratama prayiti yukta Keneshitam vachamimam vadanti chakshushrotram kaudeva yanakti. Impelled by what? Directed by what? To these thoughts come into my mind. What enlivens prana in this living body? How do I see? How do I hear? How do I smell or taste or touch? How do these words emerge? By what shining being within is all this lit up? It's a question about consciousness, basically. So it starts with that question. It will come. That's the first mantra, which will come soon. And then number one more let me do, and I'll stop here because the next part of it is deep. It'll take time. एवं हि विरक्तस्य प्रत्यागात्म विषयं विज्ञानं श्रोतुं मंतुं विज्ञातुं च सामर्थ्यम उपपद्यते नान्यथा. In this way alone, for a spiritual seeker, the capacity to inquire, to study, to reason, and to meditate, this capacity arises, not otherwise. Without the purification of mind, the qualifications for spiritual inquiry will not arise. Either the person will have no interest at all. What are these people doing? Why study an obsolete ancient text? What do you want to know? There's no point in this. Or an interest arises, but this kind of inquiry into who am I doesn't appeal to me. I mean, I can believe in a God maybe, but what's this who am I? I don't get it. So there is an interest, but an inability to understand non-duality. That also comes. Another kind of obstacle could be there is an interest, there's an ability to understand, but I feel it's not practical. I can't do it. So all these kinds of inner obstacles, they will come unless there is a sufficient purity of mind. So that sufficient purity of mind, without that, one cannot study, reason, meditate upon the ultimate reality, our real nature. So that's what he has said here. And by this way, he has also indicated what are we supposed to do? What exactly will we do here? He says, Shrotum mantum vijñātum. You will hear and you will reason and you will realize what is being said here. After this, what will happen is, okay, let me do the 7th point also, then say something complicated afterward. The 7th point is simply, what's the result of it? What will happen? What's the end of this project? What do we get out of it? He says that you will get enlightenment and freedom, moksha. What's the nature of that freedom? He quotes from the Isha Upanishad. Tatra ko moha kashoka ekatva manupashyata. Where is any more delusion? Where is any more sorrow for one who sees oneness? The result of enlightenment. You go beyond sorrow, you go beyond delusion, you go beyond fear. I remember there was a very touching thing which Dr. Anil Seth, he's a well-known neuroscientist, and I was with him on this conversation online just the other week. He's the head of the neuroscience department in the University of Sussex, and also a well-known speaker on consciousness studies. And he said very touchingly, he said he doesn't know much about his Indian background. He's Indian and English. But he said when his father passed in the funeral in Oxfordshire, Dr. said he chanted from the Upanishads. And he told us what he chanted. He said, I chanted to the one who sees oneness. Where is there any delusion? Where is there any sorrow? You go beyond sorrow. He's chanting from the Isha Upanishad. This is the result of enlightenment. You go beyond sorrow, you go beyond delusion. You see oneness everywhere. Then Shankaracharya quotes from the Chandogya Upanishad. What is the result of enlightenment? Tarati shokam atmavit, the knower of the self, the real one who realizes the self. What happens? Tarati shokam, goes beyond sorrow, the deep solution to the problem of suffering. Then he quotes from the Mundaka Upanishad. This should be familiar. We did it recently. Bhidyate hridaya granthi chidyante sarva samshaya kshiyante chasya karmani tasmin drishte paravare. The knots of the heart are cut asunder. All doubts are dispelled forever. Past karmas are burnt up in a trice. For the one who has seen the transcendent and the immanent Brahman, you realize that you are that. You are one with everything. So what a extraordinarily poetic way of depicting, ultimate freedom, spiritual freedom. The next point is complicated, so I'll leave it for the next class. And very interesting also. What is the way of desire? What is the way of the householder? One. What is the way of renunciation of desire? And what is the way of the sannyasi? Shankaracharya, of course, a great proponent of formal monasticism. And he's going to describe. It's, you have to remember the Vedic context of it all. From the Vedic worldview, what is a householder? From the Vedic worldview, what is a monk? And why is the monastic attitude so important according to Shankaracharya for becoming enlightened? You don't have to maybe formally become a monk, but internally one must have that monastic attitude. Why? And what does it mean from the Vedic perspective? So that's what Shankaracharya will engage in a discussion. We will do that and start the Upanishad in the next class. Good. Let me take a few of the questions and comments which have come and then end. Shubha Mahalaya. Yes, thanks for reminding me. This is the beginning of the Devi Paksha. It's called Mahalaya and very important in Bengal, in eastern India. This is the time when many devout Hindus give offerings for departed ancestors, father, mother, grandparents and great-grandparents and all. You offer them the funeral offerings. Also, this is the prelude to the Durga Puja, the worship of the Divine Mother. And interestingly, by the way, it's interesting that we have started Kena Upanishad on this auspicious day because it is in this Upanishad and only in this Upanishad that Durga makes an appearance. In this Upanishad later on we'll see, finally when one attains enlightenment, it is by the grace of the Divine Mother. The name used is Uma Haimavati. Uma, the daughter of the Himalayas. Uma Haimavati, daughter of the Himalayas. She comes and gives enlightenment to Indra. So there's a story which will come at the end. So we are starting this on the eve of Durga Puja. And in this Upanishad, as we shall see very soon, Durga herself is going to come along in this Upanishad. What is the name of the book you have there? The one which I use is Swami Gambhirananda's 8 Upanishads. It comes in 2 volumes. You can buy both volumes at the same time. It has 8 Upanishads with the original Upanishad mantra and its translation in English, and an English translation only without the original Sanskrit of Shankaracharya's commentary. This is nice, but there are many, many versions available. You don't have to really, be particular or finicky about it. Then Girish says, the earlier discussion brings to mind Socrates' quote, the unexamined life is not worth living. Yes, in fact, Shankaracharya will quote here when he's talking about monasticism. Parikshya lokan karmachitan brahmano nirvedam ayat nastya krita kritena. It's from the Mundaka Upanishad. Having the Brahmin student or the spiritual seeker, having examined life, comes to the conclusion that the akrita, that which is not produced by karma, cannot be attained through karma. Basically, that which is beyond cause and effect cannot be attained through causality. Doing things, I will get this. As long as you are in that loop, by doing this, I will get this. It's still samsara. It can be a worldly samsara, it can be another worldly samsara, it can be a religious samsara. But what we are looking for here is beyond cause and effect. And so he comes to nirvedam, dispassion. I do not want anything in this world which is a product of temporary causes and effects. I will do this and I'll get this. Then it will go away. Then I'll do this and I'll get that. Then it'll go away. I'll do one more thing and get one more thing. This has to come to a stop. The one who turns away from this world and looks for an ultimate reality. And then you notice it doesn't have to be a formal monk. It's anybody, like I guess most of us here, we are looking for that. Okay, I think that's about it. Discussion we will take up next time in the next class. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu. I pray to the Divine Mother Durga. May this study go well. May its benefits be felt by all of us. May the spiritual knowledge dawn on all of us in this very life itself. May her blessings, dharmartha kama moksha, all of that be showered on all of us, on her children. So this is the time to pray to the Divine Mother, Durga. Shubha Mahalaya to everybody. Thank you.